India, Janvi Fukan, President, Flow, Priya Hingorani, Senior Advocate and Chair, Flow Legal Committee, past presidents, GB members, and guests. I'm Advocate Anju Kapoor, a practicing lawyer enrolled with the bar since 1995, and I'm the founder of a full-service law firm, AKMD Legal. I'm proud to have been associated with the Flow Legal Cell, and it gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this session as the co-chair Flow Legal Committee. May I introduce our chief guest, Honorable Justice Indu Malhotra, Sitting Judge, Supreme Court of India. Justice Malhotra is the first woman to be directly elevated from the bar as a judge of the Supreme Court of India. She is the second woman in India to be designated a senior advocate by the Supreme Court of India in 2007. Justice Malhotra has specialized in the law of arbitration and has participated in many national and international arbitrations. She has also been appointed as a sole arbitrator by various arbitral institutions. Justice Malhotra is also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, London, and is a member of several arbitration panels. In 2017, the Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India, constituted a high-level committee to review arbitration institutions and to make recommendations for institutionalization of arbitration in India, to make recommendations and suggestions for legislative amendments to the Indian Arbitration Conciliation Act. Justice Malhotra was a member of this committee, which submitted its report to the Ministry of Law and Justice and hence recommended amendments to the Arbitration Conciliation Act. She has done her schooling from Carmel Convent School in Delhi, holds a bachelor's and master's in political science and a bachelor's of law. She has recently published her fourth edition of her commentary on law of arbitration. She is the chairperson of the Supreme Court Gender Sensitization and Internal Complaint Committee. She is also the member of the Supreme Court Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee. We also have with us today Priya Hingorani, Chair, Flow Legal Committee. Priya is a senior advocate and has an active law practice since the year 1990. She practices in the Supreme Court and in the various high courts of the country. She has practiced in diverse fields of law, including taxation, customs excise, and family law. Presently, she is the Secretary General, SARC Law Chapter, India. May I also introduce Janvi Fukan, President, Flow. Janvi is an entrepreneur, a co-founder of two National Tourism Award-winning companies, Jungle Travels India and Assam Bengal Navigation Company under the JTI Group. Her companies are encompassed in travel and hospitality, tea and textiles. She is the 37th National President and the first from the Northeast. Passionate about women's empowerment, Janvi strongly advocates and tirelessly works towards building sustainable livelihoods for women's economic upliftment at policy as well as legislative levels. Equality, social justice, and skill development to make women confident, employable, and economically independent is her goal. In 2008, she was involved with GOLD, the NGO for rehabilitation of trafficked women. Through Flow, batches of rescued women were provided a sustainable livelihood with the requisite weaving skills with a master trainer organized by Central Silk Board to the shelter's home. May I now request Janvi to make her address. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste. Honorable Justice Indu Malhotra, past presidents, Flow governing members, Justice Indu Malhotra, it is my great privilege to welcome you today as the 37th National President of Flow, the women's wing of FICCI. Flow is the oldest women's chamber of business of Southeast Asia. Today, I wanted to take a moment to also acknowledge the great women which have made law of India. I thought of Miss Anna Chandi, who was India's first female judge and the first woman in the country to become a High Court judge in 1959. She's most likely also the second woman in the world to have become a High Court judge after US's Florence Allen, who was appointed as a judge in 1922. Not only was Anna Chandy India's first female judge, but she also became the first woman among the Commonwealth nations to become a High Court judge. Our distinguished guest today, Justice Indu Malhotra, is the seventh woman judge of the Supreme Court of India. Justice Malhotra is also the only woman to have been designated senior advocate by the Supreme Court in 2007, 30 years after the honor was first conferred on Justice Leela Seth. Justice Malhotra, our understanding of what we feel is that one of the most pervasive forms of gender discrimination lies in the unequal treatment of women and men by the law. I was studying the World Bank's Women, Business and Law 2020 report, which tells us that women still have just 3/4 of the legal rights of women. We find that India is placed 117th among 190 countries in the world in 2020. It scored 74.4%, on par with Benin and Gambia, and way below least developed countries like Rwanda and Lesotho. And this 2020 edition seems to show that in the past 2 years, 40 economies enacted 62 legal reforms in total. But the picture varies widely from region to region, with scores ranging from 49.6 in the Middle East and North Africa to 94.6 in high-income countries on a scale of 0 to 100. So achieving gender equality, we know, is not a short-term process. It requires strong political will and a concerted effort by governments and civil society and international organizations. But legal reforms can play the foundation and the pivotal role as the first important step. So I read that according to the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, that it is possible to quantify the economic costs of such discrimination. We find that the current level of discrimination is estimated to induce a loss of about US $12 trillion, or 16% of the global income. So empowering women in the economy and closing the gender gaps in the world of work is also key to achieving the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals, and particularly Goal 5 to achieve gender equality. Today, India stands ranked 112th among 153 countries in the Global Gender Gap Index for 2020. There are a great many difficulties that women face around the world, and Indian women in particular, which includes poverty, female feticide, sexual harassment, education, lack of education opportunities, lack of job training, and we can go on. We all know that a lot needs to be done to ensure that Indian women have equal rights, and to see an India defined by inclusive citizenship rather than exclusive. So legal frameworks, we know, need to become more coherent, and more effort is now being given towards proper implementation and monitoring. Justice Malhotra, Flo in his 37 years, has worked to spread awareness about the laws that affect women in India. In Flo, we had launched a book on laws affecting women by our past president, Nita Bushra, in 2014-2015. The updated version of that was brought out by our past president, Flo, Vinita Bimbet, in 2017. And we also published a handbook on business laws in the tenure of past president, Vasti Bharatram, in 2017-18. Besides this, Flo and his chapter, we have 17 chapters pan-India. We have been creating learning platforms through seminars and workshops. And we had a legal cell, which I first set up in 2016. But today we are opening a new dimension under what we are now calling the Flo Legal and Advisory Cell, with a special objective for our own Flo members. We are fortunate to have legal stalwarts who are our very own Flo members. Our member, Priya Hingorani, senior advocate, will lead our panel of top-notch lawyers who are going to help our members. The idea was that being in a Flo fraternity, our members can think of them as an SOS, a call for help, just to be able to pick up the phone and talk to a friend and understand the way forward. And to discourage the legal, instead of going in for litigation, of arbitration and mediation could be the way forward. So that was my understanding. And like I had spoken about, wanting to put a human face to the law. And that finally it's all, there may be laws, but there are human beings behind it. And we can reach out to each other is, I think, would be half the job accomplished. So I'm very happy today to announce my legal team and the panel of lawyers among our Flow fraternity. The chair would be Priya Hingorani, senior advocate, co-chair Lalita Mohini Bhatt, partner in Law Links. Co-chair will be Anju Kapoor. Panel of lawyers will be Namrata Mukhin, lawyer, Delhi High Court. Manisha K. Karia, advocate on record, Supreme Court. Rashmi Vedalingam, partner, Vedalingam and Associates. Deepa Bora, partner in the Lex Intelli attorneys. Lucy Rana, also partner, Rana and Company. Umang Pathak, lawyer. Cyril Amarchan. Anita Pandey, senior advocate. Sonali Malhotra, principal litigating lawyer at Sunil Malhotra's. Rachna Srivastav, also senior advocate. So besides this, what we have envisaged, we will also proactively like to evaluate laws with the help of all our fraternity, legal fraternity, and understand what was creating the gender equality and to propagate policy if we can. We also want to continue to provide knowledge aid to our members through our handbooks that we have on the laws affecting women, on the business laws in India. I will now request Priya Hingorani to enumerate the objectives of this cell and what we want to create today before requesting Honorable Justice Indu Malhotra to request us. So may I first present Justice Malhotra with a memento, a small token from our side. I would request IT to please play that. Memento first, please. Thank you. It's a little token, Justice Malhotra, and when we can, we will be able to send that to you in person. Now, may I ask Priya to please first present the concept of our initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Janvi. Thank you very much. A very warm welcome to Justice Indu Malhotra, who I have had the privilege of knowing since I was a child. I have been, when I joined the profession, Justice Malhotra was at her peak as a lawyer then, and a great inspiration for all of us. Apart from the fact that my parents were in the profession and they were, of course, my role models, we had role models, Justice Indu Malhotra. And it's been, her journey has been very inspiring for many of our young lawyers. And the one thing which I'd like to share with all of us here today is that it's such a pleasure to appear before Justice Indu Malhotra because, one, she's very strict in court. You have to be absolutely ready with your matters. But you're at ease when you're in her court because you know she will give you a great patient hearing. So I think it's a pleasure, and thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and being here with us today. I couldn't have thought of anybody more perfect for this opening of our legal cell. I know the kind of cases Justice Malhotra did as a lawyer, and also in the last, as her journey as a judge at the Supreme Court, Justice Malhotra has heard a lot of matters which have come up where concerns for women's rights, empowerment of women have come up, whether it was the Sabrimala temple matter, or whether it is the matter of where she has taken the initiative to bring about common laws and practices for maintenance across the country. I mean, that's one area where we, as a lawyer who's doing a lot of family law work, can say that women are actually suffering across the country, particularly in the smaller towns, where they are not getting their dues as far as maintenance is concerned, visitation is concerned, maintenance for the children is concerned. Even getting interim maintenance at the initial stage takes 2 to 3 years in some cases. So that is one case where I think Justice Malhotra has tried to get the whole country's procedure and system in place. It's a Herculean task, and we are hoping that we'll be able to simplify it for the common litigants, the women in distress. So when Janvi and the governing council decided to put this cell, open it up, because as Janvi said that we have had in the past some sort of interactions with law. The whole purpose was to make it simpler for the flow members across the country, for them to understand what the laws are, what their rights are. In India, legal awareness is actually not so much as it should be. Of course, our National Legal Services Authority and various legal aid centers are trying to impart legal awareness across the country in their own way. We have paralegals also doing this kind of a work. But I think it was important for us to reach out to our members, particularly our members, and inform them what their rights are, and to handhold them as and when is required. As Janvi mentioned, the SOS line would be there. We would have a centralized office in Delhi. We already have a committee and a panel, which is an absolutely fantastic panel we have put together in Delhi. And we are hoping to have similar lawyers coming. And because the beauty of this is that it's a pro bono, honorary pro bono services which we would be handing out to our members. And we're looking forward to people coming in from different states, as from the 17 chapters, and make a ring around the country for SOS helpline for women, whether is in startups, whether it is for mediation, whether it is for making as small a thing as making their wills, whether it is family law matters. So whatever it is, we are there to handhold them. The one thing which we felt while we were putting together this whole initiative was that we have so much resource amongst us, as whether it is our past presidents. I was initiated in Flow by Anuradha Goyalji, who's here with us, and Nina Malhotra handholded me when I was inducted in Flow. And I have learned in my journey with Flow that the past presidents the subsequent presidents have tried to enlarge the compass and bring in women from different walks of life into the family of Flow. But somewhere there is a disconnect when it comes to their personal problems or problems with their companies. And so this initiative is one step to bring them closer to us. The legal awareness would be in the form of as booklets or e-flyers or e-magazines, as we are looking forward to do that. And but as far as the cell is concerned, it will be open for 24/7, I would say, in a way, for if anybody is in distress to come and ask us to assist them. And so having said that, I think the other thing which in Flow, of course, we have the main FICCI has the Indian Council of Arbitration, but and we've been trying very hard, apart from arbitration, to set up a pre-litigation mediation cell and a mediation cell. So I think with Flow and FICCI, we'll build the bridge and set up the mediation center as well soon, at least particularly for our Flow women members. Thank you very much. I hand it back to Janvi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Priya. I would like IT to play a small video. This is for Justice Indu Malhotra to do the honors. You'll just play a little video from our side. IT, please. Thank you. I'm afraid there was a little bit of glitch there. Nevertheless, the message has gone. And may I now request Justice Malhotra to please address the gathering.
Thank you. We have gathered here today, albeit virtually, to launch the FICCI Legal and Advocacy Cell, a flagship initiative of the FICCI Ladies Organization. My heartiest felicitations to the President, Ms. Janvi Phukan, the Senior Vice President, Ms. Ujjwala Singhania, Ms. Jayanti Dalmia, Vice President, Ms. Priya Hingorani, the FLO Legal and Advocacy Cell Head, and Ms. Anju Kapoor, and all the other office bearers and participants in this organization. It is a flagship initiative, and I'm very happy to inaugurate this this organization, which is being launched by you, which I think has great relevance, particularly after the pandemic has broken out and serious legal issues have emerged, which I do want to dwell upon in brief before I go into other issues. The object, of course, of FLO is to create an inclusive economic trajectory to promote women across various industry sectors. Now, with the onset of the pandemic this year, there has been an unprecedented economic slowdown in the country. The IMF had projected a growth which was estimated at 5.9%, which has fallen to 1.9%. And with that, it has thrown up serious challenges for the industry, and legal guidance has become of crucial importance. The Government of India came out with a slew of notifications. It began with the Ministry of Finance, which issued notifications with respect to the invocation of force majeure clauses. Ministry of Shipping was the next to follow, and there were further amendments which were introduced in the IBC code to protect industry, particularly the micro small sector, because they were taken out of the purview because the minimum CIRP was now enhanced from 1 lakh to 1 crore to protect the micro and small scale sector. And that was, these notifications were done to protect industry from insolvency proceedings being initiated against them. Then there was a notification, the NCAT passed, that's the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal passed an order directing that the period of lockdown would be excluded in all cases pending before the NCLT and the NCLAT. Provision was made for the exclusion by insertion of Regulation 47A in the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India by the Second Amendment regulations. The IBC suspended the initiation of proceedings for any default arising on or after 25th March 2020, that is when the lockdown was announced, for a period of 6 months. The period of limitation was extended by the Supreme Court by passing an order on 15th March 2020 saying that limitation for filing petitions, appeals, and it would now be enhanced till further orders. So it in fact superseded the existing regime which was in force. And by a further order on 6th May, the period of limitation, which is applicable to the Arbitration Act, the Negotiable Instruments Act, were also further extended. So there were a lot of legal problems which were thrown up by the pandemic. And I thought it was very crucial to set up such an organization which would guide the industry with respect to the various notifications which were being passed by the government, what was the intent of these notifications, and how, and also the various orders being passed by the Supreme Court, by the tribunals, etc., which were protective of industry from the onslaught of any kind of unwarranted litigation during this period when everyone was reeling through a period of emergency in an economic slowdown situation. Now, so therefore, the initiative to set up this flagship institution is extremely well timed to guide the industry through the various initiatives, the notifications issued, and judgments being passed by the courts in this situation, and of course in the future. Apart from commercial issues which have led to legal resolutions, the constitution has also been amended, and I will touch upon only a couple of things which have happened in the more recent past. One is there that with the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution, the fundamental duty was elevated that the obligation to renounce practices which are derogatory to women was elevated to the status of a fundamental duty by the 42nd Amendment. I'm only going to touch upon some of the amendments which are relevant for women so that you have a general overview of how the law stands today. The 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment has been a great landmark because by this amendment, a reservation was made for women in various representative bodies at the grassroots levels, that is in panchayats in rural areas and municipalities in urban areas, where 1/3 representation was made available for women exclusively. And that has gone a long way. In fact, I must tell you something interesting, taking off from this amendment. There was a skewed sex ratio in Haryana because of the increased incidence of female feticide. So in 2012, in village Bibipur in Haryana, there were 200 women who took part in a panchayat along with men and passed a resolution wherein they said that female feticide is a heinous act and should be treated at par with murder. In fact, it had a great impact because it was well known, like in areas of Rajasthan, in areas, and Haryana was notorious for it because the female population had become so skewed that the men in Haryana had to actually go out of the state to get married. There were no women. So this, amendment has had a tremendous positive effect because women who were being appointed in these panchayats were able to, gear up public opinion, and which has now brought the population level to some balance. So this has been one of the major amendments to the Constitution to protect women and women's rights. I'm not going to touch upon other legislations which were brought about soon after the Constitution came into force, because broadly all of you are aware of. I will just touch upon some more. In 2013, there were major amendments effected in the criminal law. This was for the protection of women, recognition of live-in relationships as a reality in society, and how to protect women who were in a live-in relationship from being reduced to destitution, or men just abandoning them after having lived long years of their lives with them, or the offsprings of a live-in relationship to provide them protection. So there have been amendments in the criminal law, and also judicial decisions have played a progressive role in recognizing it as a social reality, and that brought about the Domestic Violence, the Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act in 2005, which has given statutory recognition to a woman in a live-in relationship as being entitled to protection and various reliefs which are provided by that act. There have also been some very progressive judgments passed in matters of employment. There is the case of Mackenzie versus Audrey, where Supreme Court had this a 2001 judgment where a company paid its female stenographers lesser remuneration in comparison with male stenographers. The court held that the very fact that female stenographers were treated differently as a different class and who were paid less remuneration was discriminatory, the court relied upon the Equal Remuneration Act and held that the management was liable to pay the same remuneration to all stenographers, irrespective of their sex. Another interesting case, which I had done on the first day, was the Charu Purana case. Is very interesting that insofar as cine costume artists are concerned and hairdressers, it was, you will not believe it, a monopoly of men, and women were not allowed by the bylaws of these associations. So it was in the Charu Khurana case, the court said you can't have these kind of bylaws where you have shut out women from practicing as artists and hairdressers in the film industry. And this judgment gave an opening to women to also get into this avenue. Another interesting case is the Anuj Garg case, where Section 30 of the Punjab Excise Act had prohibited the employment of women in premises where liquor or other intoxicating drugs were consumed by the public. This came to be challenged, and the court said this provision is unconstitutional, and they invoked the anti-stereotyping principle to say that this was discriminatory and women have a right to pursue the profession they please. In August 2020, there has been one of the most progressive judgments in the Vinita Sharma case, where the court has said that the right to succession in ancestral property dates back to your birth, and it's irrespective of whether the father was a living co-partner on the date when the 2005 amendment came into force. So there have been a lot of progressive judgments. There has been progressive legislation. There have been amendments carried out to the IPC, to the CRPC, and of course social legislation, which I think would be very relevant and useful to be imparted to the members by flow to the members of the FICCI Women's Organization. Even with respect to acid attacks, certain guidelines were laid down, and with respect to the right of dignity of a woman and to have reproductive autonomy with respect to and bodily integrity of women. In this backdrop, I think it's very useful to launch this set, and it would be a suggestion I would like to make to Priya and Anju, that I think you should come out, instead of flyers, come out with a newsletter, maybe once in 3 months, once every quarterly, reflecting important amendments. One is, of course, in commercial law, like the IBC, the Commercial Courts Act, the Companies Act. Apart from that, because those are most relevant to women entrepreneurs. Apart from that, amendments which are beneficial, social legislation, or important judgments, I think should also be imparted through that, quarterly newsletter, which will be very, very relevant and useful for women to be aware of. In fact, we have been taking a lot of steps in the Supreme Court. We have set up a press. We had set up the Gender Sensitization Committee. This was pursuant to the Vishakha guidelines. I have been a member and the present chairperson also, and I have been pretty active in it. We are trying to reform the guidelines which are framed, and we are trying to ensure that every high court, every district court in the country has similar guidelines to protect women from sexual harassment in the workplace. Insofar as my personal experience is concerned, Priya was very keen that I should speak a few words about it. I joined the profession in 1983 and have by now spent more than 37 years at the bar and the bench. It has been a long and arduous path, but it has been rewarding. I think success does not come easily or automatically. One has to be focused in one's goal and consistent in one's practice. And I think what is of prime importance for a professional or for a business entrepreneur is time management and diary management, which are key to your progress. It's very, very crucial and critical that you are able to manage your diary so that you can manage the various activities which you've charted out for yourself. The legal cell is a well thought out initiative, will certainly bring about greater legal awareness for women entrepreneurs. And it gives me great pleasure and pride when I see women breaking the proverbial glass ceiling. The representation of women is no longer symbolic. Women do work today, shoulder to shoulder with their male counterparts. And I think even though great strides have been made, we are still far behind. As the president just told us that the statistics put us at a pretty low even today. I think women do require greater representation in public offices, but there is a caveat to it. It must be merit-based when you're occupying a public office. It cannot merely be gender-based. So that is of crucial importance when you occupy a public office. While circumstances do not change overnight, initiatives like the legal cell would certainly act as a catalyst to ensure gender-neutral growth in the workforce. With these words, my heartiest felicitations to all of you on launching this initiative. Thank you.
Justice Malhotra, on behalf of FLOW, I thank you deeply and very sincerely for sharing your time and giving us this guidance. Your excellent suggestion about the newsletter that we must bring out is very well taken, and we shall work on it. We will be taking your advice through my dear colleagues here, and like at FLOW, we are going to try to bring the law and the woman closer together with their help. And we take full cognizance of what you have said, that there can't be any excuses only on basis of gender. It has to be merit. I agree with that on that. And may I now ask Anju Kapoor to please give us the vote of thanks. Unmute yourself, Anju.
Yes, done that. So I'm delighted to conclude and propose the vote of thanks to the wonderful interactions we had this evening. This legal advisory cell will enable FLOW members to reach out to the lawyers within FLOW who collectively bring years of experience in myriad fields. Being able to reach out to them for guidance and advice will be immensely beneficial for all our members. Thank you very much, Justice Malhotra, for your time, your inputs, which were highly informative, and the suggestion to circulate newsletters will go a long way in connecting the cell with all its members. Ma'am, your words were a great source of inspiration. Thank you very much. And I'm also glad to share that I'm also an alumni of Carmel Convent School. Thank you, Priya, for moderating this session. Last but not the least, thank you very much, our President Janvi Fukan, for initiating the Legal Advisory Cell. Thank you all for joining this session. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. It's lovely to have a short and sweet event and virtual technology has taken us great heights. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Janvi.
For being here with us today. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Priya, hi. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Anuradha, thank you.
Hi, heartiest congratulations, everyone.
We have the opportunity.
Congratulations, Janvi, Priya.
Thank you.
I'm sure it will go a long way.
Can we have any of our past presidents? Can you see?
I can see, I saw Usha ji, but I don't know where. Neena ji.
Yeah.
Ranjana. They're there.
Janvi, this is a great initiative, and I'm sure it will go a long way. It was wonderful hearing Justice Malhotra, and the whole program is really nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. You know, I have made it very clear that we have had a legal cell in 2016. This is just a sort of a evolving thing,
Yeah.
and a SOS that I had spoken so much about, that we want to put a human face to the law and the woman. So that was very important. I think Justice Malhotra has understood that.